How's it going, wrestling fans? Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Wrestle Report, episode 19 with Phil and Don.
19.
I am Phil,
I'm done.
and we are really appreciative of you showing up tonight. We have what I'd consider a loaded show. We have a lot of different news from a lot of different companies, none of which is more important than what happened last night on Raw, because I actually watched it for a change, that's news enough right there.
That's big news.
I think it's a great night to tune in because we have, for the second time in as many weeks and in as many episodes as well, a new WWE champion, this time in the form of the almighty Bobby Lashley.
Lashley.
Do you think Leo Rush is Leo Rush is, his thing being I came to collect. He's been keeping up with that because he's been winning a lot of belts lately on the indies. But do you think he's sitting somewhere smiling like, yeah, that's my boy right there?
Oh yeah, I don't know if you saw the video. I reposted it on Facebook.
No,
that Leo Rush actually, like after Raw last night, he actually came out on made a video, and he was doing the whole Lashley thing, and he was just really happy for him.
That's good, man, because that was a great act, the two of them.
Oh yeah, man.
It's one of those things always happen for a reason, because as great as that was, if he doesn't get fired, he doesn't join up with MVP situation. So things happen the way they happen. But no, that's good that they're still boys. And he never seemed like salty at the way he got let go or anything. He seemed to stay pretty positive, moving forward in his career. So that's positive news for sure to know that he was cool and happy for him. But yeah, great news there. I think The Miz plays his. He could easily get lost in all this. He was the perfect transitional champion for this. I would not have hated if this took another week or two. I would have been okay with him having the title for more than 7 days. But this is the way they chose to do it. I didn't hate it at all. It was definitely great. Just some notes here before we get into how this all happened. Bobby Lashley is the third recognized African American World Heavyweight Champion. WWE Champion. There is a distinction because that gets talked about in here. The Rock being the first, and then Kofi Kingston being the second. And then the other note I had here is Bobby Lashley at 43 years old. He is the oldest ever WWE Champion to win it for the first time. As in the age that he was, he's now the oldest he was winning the title for the first time. And I believe you also had another distinction that he holds now.
Oh yeah, he's the second person to have the ECW champion, the TNA champion, and now he's the WWE champion. So congrats to Bobby Lashley. I'm happy for him. It's long overdue. This should be like his fifth title reign at least.
Yeah. And before we get into it, if you can name the other person that has been ECW, Impact, and now WWE champion, go ahead and drop that in the comments or tweet it to us. Use the hashtag WrestleReportPod. If you can guess the other person. Only one other person. Again, that's ECW champion, Impact / TNA champion. Either way works. And now WWE champion. So the way this show kind of broke out, it really was, they say comedy comes in threes and sometimes things like that has to happen. Really on the third attempt of this match, because they were going to have the match at 9 p.m., which they kind of did something like that the week before. Like, I think he had to accept the challenge by 9 p.m. And it's like they recently learned how to put a countdown clock in their graphics, and now they want to use it every week. But I was okay with it. I'm like, all right, now we know, like, if you don't like what's on now, there's a WWE title match coming on at 9. So if you are going to flip, change the channel, come back at 9, you know what you're going to see. I don't mind that when they do that sometimes. The Miz was, I don't know if he was stomach, he was holding his backside, like I don't know what he was trying to fake, but he was faking an illness, I guess, which kind of in poor taste given the current climate of the world. Maybe I don't know if they thought it through. He wasn't coughing or anything. I guess that would have put it over the top, but I think that they ended up saying it was stress that was getting to him or something, so they covered it that way. So he said, well, we're going to give you another hour and you got to get out there. And the second the bell rings, he rolls out of the ring, grabs his belt, and just hightails it the hell out of there. Lashley wins by DQ. And a part of me thought that was maybe going to be the end of it for at least tonight. I thought they were going to – that's how The Miz will survive for another week. I was kind of surprised that they put it a third time's a charm, all in one night.
Oh, man, I was so surprised, bro. I thought for sure they was going to hold it off until Fastlane. So I was like, okay, I'm okay with The Miz holding on. I'm okay with it actually doing that. But then I was also kind of upset, like, okay, they let us down again with the thought of we're gonna get a actual WWE title chance. I was surprised, but once I saw like MVP and Bobby Lashley in the backstage segment with the Shane McMahon and Adam Pearce, I was like, okay, it's gonna happen. It's definitely gonna happen. And then the fact that that Shane McMahon told the Miz if he didn't challenge him, he's gonna forfeit his title. I was like, okay.
Well,
yeah.
He did and he didn't. He said if the Miz doesn't answer the challenge, I'll consider stripping him of the title. And I'm like, Shane, what does that mean? That's like when you ask your parents if you can go to your friend's house and they say, I'll think about it. It's like, all right, well, where do I go from here? So like, another weird, we talked about age. We talked about Lashley's age earlier. Did you know that Shane McMahon now is older than his dad was when he was feuding with Steve Austin? Does that not make you old or what? Just as a quick side note there. But yeah, Shane became pretty, integral to this whole story, and he's not really running Raw. That's kind of Adam Pearce's job, and of course, him and Miz have a history, so maybe he's a little, salty towards him. But we did get the third match, and it turned into a lumberjack match, and this is an example of a lumberjack match used correctly, because sometimes AEW is guilty of this too. They had one, I think it was Eddie Kingston and Lance Archer, and they had a lumberjack match for kind of no reason, because it was, these guys kept wanting to get at each other, and they just had a lumberjack match. So lumberjack match is meant when one of the guys is trying to escape.
Yeah, trying to run away and stuff.
Kind of like the origins of a cage match was to keep the chicken shit heel in the ring. So this is it being used properly, and the Miz multiple times tried to get out of the ring and was thrown back in. He gets put in. What does he call his full Nelson? Does he have a name for it?
The Hurt Lock.
Hurt Lock. All right. So at this moment, because he tapped out kind of quick, honestly. I thought they were going to drag this out a couple more minutes, or 20 seconds or something. I really thought the Miz was just going to rear back and like low blow him with his foot and get DQ'd. And that would have been his third. I saw it coming,
I saw it coming so many. Like when the Miz was on the ground, like trying to plead to Bobby Lashley. I was like, okay, yeah, he's gonna blow him. Yeah. Then that's it. And we're definitely gonna get the match at Fastlane. And then it didn't happen. I was like, okay, all right, cool.
And I would have made it even better for me too. And again, this is splitting hairs. Is if you show him actively trying to kick his foot back and low blow him, and Lashley keeps like blocking it. And, the announcer picks up on it. It's like, oh, he's trying to get disqualified. It's all he can do. And then he, wrenches back and he finally – and you see this in UFC sometimes where the guy's tapping, but you can't really tell. Like, he was probably tapping for a solid 10 seconds before,
Yeah, he actually called, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was just that Lashley was just swinging him around and stuff.
That's the other thing, too. It made it hard to see. But, yeah, it was – I don't know what I thought. It was one of those – it's like when a good play happens in football and you have to like, are you sure there's no flag? And you kind of look around. Like the second that happened to me, like as I'm watching it, I was waiting for something stupid to technically this happened and this, but no, the match was just over and Lashley was the new champion. And, in short, it was awesome to see.
Yeah, and you know what I always was thinking too. I was like, okay, so they got a couple more minutes left in the show left.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so what's gonna happen next? Mm-hmm. And I was like, the celebration was going on, and I was thinking like, all you can hear is dun 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 dun, and then you just see Brock Lesnar come out. I was like, oh, that would have made this a really great Raw, because then you got that you put in that seed that, oh yeah, this is gonna happen.
And there was a lot, like, I checked Twitter like right as it ends, and everybody, Brock, have Brock beat McMahon. And I'm like, can we give this guy his freaking moment? Was my first thought. And my second thought here, because luckily, since we've done this podcast, we haven't had a lot of Brock Lesnar. It's been in one of those downtimes of Brock Lesnar. So I don't know if I've voiced my opinion on this before, but I'm over Lesnar. I've been over Lesnar since I just don't want to see him. Like, and if I do, I don't want him in the, we talked about this with Goldberg, right? I don't mind seeing Goldberg 3 times a year for 2 more years if it's not for the title. If you wanted to give me Lashley and Lesnar at Mania without the title, for example. So like if you gave me Lesnar and Lashley this year with no belt, I'd be hyped. Like right before he won the title, I would have been hyped because you can play up the MMA situation, the MMA prowess of both guys, and I think that'd be awesome. But no, don't give Lashley this moment just to not to just lose it right away, because there's even talks like now it'll be him and Drew's just gonna win it back, and I could see it going that way. And I was on here last week just saying like, Drew McIntyre carried us through the pandemic as champion. He deserves that pop with real people that'll be at Mania, and I still believe that, but I don't necessarily want it at the expense of Lashley now.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you have to go that route and go Lesnar, like, you need to put Lashley over. Like, Lesnar does not need to be champion for the 18,000th time. I'm done with it. And like the buildup of this with Lashley, and you look at where he was like a year ago before the Hurt Business started. Like, this is great. They've stumbled onto a great story. It's similar like the Daniel Bryan thing. Like, it was never the plan at the beginning, but because of where we're at, it looks like this great long-term booking situation. And they kind of fell ass backwards into it, so you might as well run with it. So like, whoever he faces at Mania, he can face Lesnar, but you got to put him over. You cannot revert back to that same old stuff that he's been champion like 70% of the past 3 years, whether it be the WWE or the Universal title. We're done with that. We need to move forward.
No, yeah, for sure, man. And I feel like what will kill me, because I really want the Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair to be one of the nice main events.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like even if it was going to be Brock versus Lashley, that's going to be at the expense of Sasha and Bianca, because unfortunately that match will be more high profile than Sasha and Bianca, which is weird, because it'll be the first time two African American women headlined WrestleMania. So the story right there is right there in it. Mm-hmm. So like, I wouldn't be upset with the match, but then I would also be like, oh man, that sucks for Sasha and Bianca, unfortunately.
That's a good point. I think that if we're assuming the Universal title is the main event of one night and the WWE title is the main event of the other, I would almost want Sasha and Belair to open just the whole show, like night one, up from the pre-show when the crowd is at its hottest. We haven't had a crowd in over a year. These people are going to be, absolutely mental for it. I would like to give them that spot if they can't be the main event. Give them, the best version of this crowd is going to be when the show first starts. So I would, if we're not going to be main event, I would give it to them, I would say.
No, that is true. I would like that too. If not the main event, let them be the first match, like how they did Rhea and Charlotte.
Yeah.
Last year.
Mm-hmm.
And as you see, that was actually, I like night 2 better than night 1 of WrestleMania. So so I think that could work. That could definitely work.
I had a weird experience with WrestleMania last year, because night 1, you remember, everybody came over here. We had our normal WrestleMania party, and we had all planned to meet up again for the second night, but we're not used to 2 WrestleMania level parties. I watched the second night like hungover in bed. Like, I was I was not used to. I'm gonna do a little better at it this year, but it was not what I was ready for. So like, and plus the graveyard match was night 1, so that was pretty good. So yeah, it was just a weird, I've never dealt with the 2-night thing. Nobody has, unless you are really into New Japan and are familiar with Wrestle Kingdom, because they've been doing 2 nights for the past several years at least. But yeah, there's a couple different places this can go. But the fact that Lashley's champion, it's really a testament to, we talked about it before, the best thing on Raw and was definitely the Hurt Business, and that comes back to the MVP. And I know you haven't seen this yet, Don, but on the thumbnail that I'm going to use for this video, there's a million pictures of Lashley with the belt now, but I made sure that I found one that had MVP in the background, and he's actually looking up at the sky in this photo, and he's even he tweeted out, Shad Gaspar, this was for you. I assume he was having a similar conversation with himself around the time this photo was taken. And MVP has had a really successful career, and even he was the first Intercontinental champion in New Japan. That's something that like American fans might not know. So even when he left WWE, the great run he had as U.S. champ and tag champ with Matt Hardy and all the other stuff that he did to go to New Japan and do the Hurt Business, and what he's done for the 3 guys in it might end up being the greatest accomplishment of his career. That might be his answer when he gets asked, 5 years from now, when he's no longer involved in the company. What was your proudest moment? I think it's going to be what we saw yesterday. It won't have anything to do with a match that he was involved in. It'll actually be this moment.
Oh yeah, And I don't know if you remember this, but earlier in one of the earlier episodes, we talked about how the Hurt Business is going to be dripping on all the gold.
Yeah,
and they already got the tag team. I mean, they was dripping gold already with the US and the tag team, but this is even higher stake. Now you could have MVP. Hey, go after Matt Riddle, and they actually have all the gold.
Which I would love. I don't really know what's up with it. Like he was on crutches and now he's on a cane. And I think even if he's no longer hurt, I think he's just going to keep the cane because it looks badass. So I at the moment I don't think he's cleared to wrestle. I don't know what the injury is or what the deal is, but if he's going to get back in the ring in any capacity, yeah, I'd love to see him win the US title because if you remember, he's the one that introduced this new version of the title, but he never officially held it. And we talked about it then too. It ended up parlaying into Lashley holding it, which ended up working out. But no, it was done. It was well done. It reminds me of like when you play Universe mode. It's like, yeah, I want my mid card champion to be my world champion, but I don't want him to hold both belts. So I'll put him in a triple threat match where he doesn't get pinned, and then I'll give him that. Like it was kind of booking 101, which I mean WWE likes to overcomplicate things. So I'm glad that they pulled this off the way that they did, and it's one of those deals that even if he drops it at Mania, we'll always have this moment. And now he's former WWE champion, Bobby Lashley. That doesn't mean he can't not win it again. He could win the Universal title. Like once you get former world champion on your resume, people will forever look at you different. Look at what is done for Dolph Ziggler. Like even if he's been poorly used, whenever they want to put him in a high profile match, you say former world champion Dolph Ziggler, and boom, he's right there. So Lashley, it's getting this key to this club in the storyline that when you didn't have it, it's amazing what it can change just being like, oh, guy's a former world champion. It's that simple sometimes.
Oh yeah, man, you're definitely we were spot on with that. That's that will definitely make he's definitely now a Hall of Famer. Bobby Lashley. Yeah. He's definitely now a WWE Hall of Famer in my eyes.
Yeah.
Because now he's part of that crew of the of he won every single title.
Yeah, he's Grand Slam champion now. So that's something that'll, and everyone talked about Brock Lesnar being the guy that like brings legitimacy to wrestling because of his UFC career, and we don't really talk MMA on here, but his career is not as dominant as they would like you to believe. And then you look at Bobby Lashley, who fought in Bellator and not UFC, but he has more wins than Lesnar has fights in general. Like Lashley's 15-2 in MMA, and I think Brock Lesnar's had maybe 6 or 7 fights total. So I think it's I could give you the side by side, and yes, there is a difference. It would be the same as NBA, ABA from back in the day or something like that. It is the league down, but clearly like he was built in from the top, similar to like what Dave Bautista did. He tried to fight a couple times and all that, and CM Punk has shown us it's not easy to make that transition. So the fact that Lashley did, I think, deserves just as much credit, if not more, than what Lesnar accomplished in his much shorter time in the UFC. But I agree. I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer now. This solidifies it. We mentioned the third ever African-American WWE champion. And it's funny, they posted that, and everybody's like, well, what about Booker T? What about Mark Henry? What about, and it's like, no, it's WWE champion. Those are world champions. It's a whole different belt. So yeah, he's not the third ever Black superstar ever to win a world title, because that obviously the first distinction goes back to Ron Simmons. We all know that. But to be the WWE champion, yes, there's only been 3, and it's pretty awesome to see Lashley is now a part of that group.
Yeah, Booker T and Mark Henry won that title that you have on your right shoulder.
Yes, exactly. Right there, that belt right there, right up top.
Yep. Not the one that you have on the other.
Yeah,
on
isn't
the
that
other
convenient? But yeah, no, it's definitely been great. And again, I watched Raw for the whole way through for the first time in a long time, and I picked a good night to do it. So it was definitely a great show. And we'll see as Fastlane is approaching, we will see what his first title holder. Drew kind of dropped the hint that, hey, whatever Miz has going on with Lashley, that's their problem. But whoever comes out as champion at the end of it, that's what I'm going after. So maybe that's what we get at Fastlane. Who knows? We'll have to see. Another quick note: the match with him and Sheamus to open the show, freaking slobber knocker, man. To quote JR, close to a 30-minute match on Raw. That never happens anymore.
They had 2 commercial breaks.
2 commercial breaks, yeah. Yeah, crazy stuff. Great ending with, he hits the Claymore right before Sheamus can hit the bro kick, and just great stuff. It was one of those things, like, it was on, and like I was kind of doing stuff around the house, and I look up, I was like, they're still going, and then I do some more stuff, and they're still going. So, like, credit where credit is due between the storyline with Lashley throughout the whole night, and then that one, great match in the to kick it off. Definitely a great episode of Raw. I actually haven't looked up the ratings. I'm curious if it was a good ratings night for them, as they would have earned it for sure.
Oh yeah. That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. So to make the quick jump here from main WWE stuff to AEW, we haven't gotten to talk about the big news of the Big Show, Paul White, signing with All Elite Wrestling. And when I first heard this, it's funny, I sent this to Billy and Jake, and it looked like one of those fake, because everyone just makes CM Punk is All Elite, the whatever, and I was like, no, this came right from their Twitter, AEW's Twitter account. And when I first saw it, I'm like, I don't know if this is a big deal. Like, it seems to be, but I don't think it is. So for one, he's going to mostly be a commentator, which AEW Dark is finally getting a second version of itself called an AEW Dark Elevation is what they're calling it. So essentially, one of them will stay the like Sunday Night Heat, where the enhancement guys get work and stuff. And I think this other version is going to essentially be a third hour of Dynamite. Like, it'll be the more main event guys type thing. And that's great, because you mentioned even last week that they kind of need another show. So in the meantime, this can be it. It'll be him and Shivani on the announce, and Big Show's very well spoken, so I have no issues, and I feel like he's going to do fine. But the only thing that makes this a big deal is, like, if we haven't done a top three in a while, but if we did, who's the top three guys that'll never leave Vince? And for me, it would have been Undertaker, Kane, and Big Show, probably in that order, but those would be the three. So really what this says to me is almost nobody's off limits. That's really the only thing. That's the biggest part of this whole thing, I think.
Yeah, that was a big shocker for me, just because I thought that he was going to be a WWE lifer. Mm-hmm. He was gonna live and die by Vince.
Yeah,
but to see him to actually like make this jump to AEW, I think it's gonna be good. I think he's gonna probably resurrect his career. I'm not sure if I want to see matches.
I know I don't want to see a lot of matches.
Yeah, I won't mind seeing like a couple matches, but I wouldn't want to actually be like, oh man, he has a whole feud going on, like a 5-month feud with someone. I wouldn't really be interested in it.
Yeah, same. I mean, if he has a match or two against, my biggest thing is, I think what he's going to be able to do is they have a lot of big men on the roster, and backstage he's going to really get the best out of them. He can go to a guy like Lance Archer or someone who's really raw like Wardlow and kind of just take them under his wing and really show them how to be. And like Luchasaurus is another one, but like you look at a guy like Lance Archer, he does the old school like the Undertaker, but he gets on the top rope and he does a moonsault onto them. Yeah. As impressive as that is, that's not what you want your big men doing. And I think the Big Show can go to a guy like that and be like, listen, less is more. If you're going to do that, don't do it all the time. And just like, and you're not going to not listen to the Big Show either. So I think he's going to you're going to see a shift in those bigger guys and the way they work. And he's going to have a lot to do with that. You talk about matches that you might want to see this coming week on Dynamite. And I think they have a special name for it, but I've kind of lost track of all these. But Shaq is actually getting in the ring against Cody in that tag match. Maybe that's something that we finally see. Do we finally see Paul White versus Shaq for some reason, WWE never did it other than that quick minute in the Battle Royal at WrestleMania. Like, that is something that we maybe eventually see. And maybe that was the final nail to send a Big Show over, because he clearly thinks that he has a couple of years left of being, useful and in a good capacity. And I think Vince just wanted to give him his Legends deal and let him sit home and have him show up for signings. And because he's a great ambassador for the sport of wrestling. Everybody knows, you stop anybody on the street and ask him, have you ever heard of Big Show? They're going to say yes. Doesn't matter who it is. So now he's going to be that ambassador where he would have been for WWE. Now he just is for the sport of wrestling as a whole, and it'll be on the AEW brand.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, I know he's like was a spokesman for the Special Olympics. Yeah, like he's really good for PR.
Yeah. Definitely. And I think that's going to have a lot to do with it. And a lot of people are saying, like, oh, he did this for money. And like, I think the Big Show has plenty of money. And I'm not going to be naive and say he's not getting paid very well for whatever he's going to do for them. But if that was the only thing, I don't think he'd bother to move. It wouldn't be worth his time to make the jump. I think he really wants to give back to the sport, and he wants to show that he still has a lot to offer in the ring slightly, but more so on commentary and everywhere else. So yeah, I'm definitely interested to see what happens, and maybe we will get that Shaq match down the line. That's one of the few things that it's like, all right, it probably should have happened 10 years ago, but we're here now. Let's see it. But a lot of that is going to come down to how tomorrow goes, where Shaq and I'm forgetting her name now, which I don't know. Jane Cargill. Sorry, Shaq and Jane Cargill against Cody and Red Velvet, of course, taking the place of Brandy now that she is expecting with child. I don't know how this match is going to go, because I could have originally seen with Brandy, trying to work her way through the match, mostly with Cargill, and then Shaq and Cody get in there a little bit. And there's nothing wrong with Red Velvet, but she's also very raw. So you have two green female wrestlers, a very extinguished guy in Cody, and then Shaq, who, over the years when he's almost had his match with Big Show, I'm sure he's maybe had a year of training total, like a 10 years.
Yeah. All combined. Yeah,
I think that's fair to say. So this might be, we talked about MVP's, greatest achievement is one that he wasn't in the ring for. When Cody's career is over, if this goes off well somehow, and there's, to pull a Doctor Strange, there's a lot more realities where this is a train wreck than is good. But if this ends up being good, this will end up being one of Cody's, top moments in his career if he can pull this off and make it great. I understand the PR. They're on TNT. Shaq's been plugging it on NBA, the pregame show and all that stuff. Don't be shocked when like Kenny the Jet Smith and all the other guys are like in the stands for this match tomorrow. Like, be ready for all of that. But where do you see this going? And I assume the finish will take place between the women at the end of the day. I think whoever's getting the pin, it's Red Velvet and Cargill, will be and then Cody and Shaq will just do a couple moves to each other. He'll press slam Cody. He might hit his disaster kick off the, because I don't know how many over under. How many times do you think Shaq bumps? How many times is his back at the ground? Over under like 3.
I'm under 5.
Yeah, definitely under 5. I'll say 3 on the nose, and we'll just see. We'll see where we go. But yeah, I could see. He's got to hit the ground at some point, no doubt. And he's gonna do the running. He'll do like a running shoulder tackle, right? That doesn't really count as a bump, but that'll be him hitting the ground at least. Yeah, this is gonna be interesting. We're gonna attempt to do an episode on Thursday because we want to just kind of get it out there, our opinions of this match, and then we were also going to preview AEW Revolution, which is on Sunday, not Saturday, for whatever reason this week. I think NBA stuff or whatever. Some reason they're not doing their pay-per-view on Saturday like they normally are. But wow. Yeah, so it's on Sunday, and so we're going to preview that, and we'll give a reaction on the Shaq match. Look out for that Thursday night, Friday morning type situation. But yeah, with Big Show showing up and Shaq being there, when you go to wrestling, you never know who's going to show up, regardless of the promotion. And another great example of that is over the weekend, CazXL, the former Big Cass, makes his return to the ring with Enzo Amore, now just going by Enzo, like little N, capital Z, little O. That's his new thing, also known as the real one. But they showed up at a Lariato Pro Grand Prix. It's Doc Gallows' like kind of indie thing that he started just for the hell of it, basically. And it's kind of being used as a OVW for Impact is the best way I would put it. Like they let their guys show up to there, and Hernandez was at the show. He actually made the run in with Kaz because Enzo was getting beat up, and then they made the save. And for one, it was great to see him back. It was great because he's had his demons, both mental and physical. I think people have seen the footage from a couple years. He had a seizure backstage of an indie event, which was really difficult to watch. But not only was he there, but he looked the single greatest way I've ever seen Kaz look, just absolutely jacked beyond belief. And just the fact that he's back and he's, he put on Twitter that he's finally in a spot that he wants to, live up to his potential. And he ended it with straight out of step 12. So clearly he got, the help he needed for, his, for alcohol and everything like that. So, just great to see them together. I've been a huge fan of both those guys, Enzo and Cass, both separately and together. I since they were both let go from WWE, and I think we can say it's been long enough. Unjustly, both released from WWE unjustly, because what was put on Enzo was never even remotely given truth, and really Cass was let go and he probably needed help from the company. So both those guys are let go unjustly. So to see them back together is an awesome sight, and it opens up a lot of possibilities for where they could end up next.
Oh yeah, I was always thinking like, what happens if they come back and they came back to WWE? I wouldn't be surprised about that, or I won't be surprised to end up in AEW and just be part of that great tag team division they have over there.
I wouldn't mind to see a trial run in Impact, because clearly this is happening because they're boys with Doc Gallows. Anderson and Gallows are getting the run of the place in Impact right now. They got a lot of pull over there. So if they can get them in just for, similar to like what Matt Cardona did in AEW. I think he had like a 5-match deal and one was a pay-per-view. Like even if they did something like that just to get their feet wet, to get them back on like an organized, television product of wrestling, because Enzo's done a couple of indie events, mostly against Brian Pillman Jr. Actually, a couple decent matches are floating around YouTube. He kind of took a liking to him, so he was like, "Yeah, we'll go, main event a couple indie events." When he got back into the ring, so I would love to see them back. AEW would be great. There was a time where we thought it was going to be Ring of Honor. That ship kind of sailed because of how everything shook out. But I think Impact is actually the place for them if that's what they're looking for. I think that's where that could work out right now.
Oh yeah, I think it could definitely work out. I mean, it's a TV deal. It's not WWE, but it's still like, I would still say it's not developmental.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a great. That's still a great. I wouldn't even call them an indie company. I would call them a pretty decent sized company.
The best thing about Impact is the pressure is kind of off, because the company that owns them owns the TV channel that they're on. So like they're not going to get booted off their network. If anything, they've hit rock bottom. This is rock bottom, and it ain't so bad as far as they're concerned. They stream their episodes on Twitch. When their show isn't live, they just show classic matches. They have Impact Plus. They essentially have their own network. Like they're in a much better place than I think a lot of people realize. And on their Impact Plus, they have other indie companies that pay them to be put on their app. So they're making, revenue in ways that you might not realize. And I don't know how Twitch streaming works. I assume it's similar to YouTube, that if enough people are watching, you're making money off that too.
Yeah.
So, if they have several thousand people watching their stream, their TV numbers for that network are probably pretty good. And I think it would just be a pressures off situation. Like that company has plenty of great talents that would probably love to work with these guys, and some of the younger dudes I think would benefit a lot. I mean, if this could have happened 6 months ago, imagine like Enzo and Cass versus MSK, the former Rascals. Like that, what a great feud that would have been. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing them again. I think this was a great first test for CazXL and Enzo, and hopefully we see the realest guys in another room here real soon.
I like that.
Yeah, I figured I'd give it a try there. One thing we don't talk about a lot, but I thought this was very interesting to me. We don't talk a lot of New Japan on this show, and there's a reason for that. And Donovan picked a good day to wear a New Japan shirt. But I watch it very casually. I think there's other shows that cover it more consistently and probably would do a better job than if we tried to cover every tournament and everything that they do. But since January, Kota Ibushi has been the IWGP heavyweight champion and the Intercontinental champion. And he's defended the titles together and separately. He had a match against, I want to say, okay, I can't remember now, but essentially Naito. Naito tried to challenge him for just the Intercontinental title. And what I thought was, okay, they're finally going to break these belts back apart because he's had them for 2 to 3 months together. And he ended up successfully defending the title, similar to what Moxley did against Kenta. Everybody assumed Kenta was going to beat Moxley, take the U.S. title off of him finally, but that didn't happen. It left a lot of people kind of scratching their heads. And same thing happened here. And what the news has now been announced is the Intercontinental title and the heavyweight title are now unifying. So they're actually getting rid of the Intercontinental title. And when I first heard this, I was kind of bummed about it. And the more I thought about it, they now have a U.S. title belt. They've had it for a couple years now. And I think when they made the Intercontinental title, that was meant to be their, all right, if the foreigners are going to come here, this is the belt they go for. And now that they have a straight up United States title, it kind of took the place of that. It kind of rendered the IC title obsolete. It's still kind of a big deal. I think that they're getting rid of it because there's a lot of great history with that. Shinsuke Nakamura kind of made that belt. I mentioned earlier in the show, MVP was the first champion. Kenny Omega has had it, Naito, and plenty of other guys. Kota Ibushi separately from his reign with it as the world champion now, but kind of a big deal. Like New Japan, really, people talk about in the States like titles not meaning much. Every title they have means a lot. So for them to actually retire one, I think is a huge deal.
Oh yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I didn't really know that.
I really learned it all today. I wanted to throw it on here at the end because I heard some talk about it, and I had to do some. I'm like, are they speculating this is going to happen because he has both belts for a long time, or is this really happening? And there's a full press release from New Japan. So by the end of spring, they're going to unify the titles, and not only that, the IWGP Championship, they're going to kind of retire the designs of both belts, and he's getting a whole new belt, which is going to piss off a lot of people because we talk about the designs of belts all the time. The IWGP title is maybe the best looking belt in wrestling. So I hope if they're going to get a new belt, it doesn't look that much different because that belt is amazing.
Yeah, definitely, man.
So I'm interested to see. The other thing is, instead of it being the IWGP heavyweight title, it's going to be the world heavyweight title. It's going to get world championship status, which I felt it's always had. I think now they're putting it in the name to solidify it. This is something that came up recently too on Pro Wrestling Insider. They've added the NWA title, got world title status again. MLW, Impact, and Ring of Honor. I don't know what I don't know about you, but what makes a world title for you? I think all those have always kind of been world title statuses for me. Like Impact, there was a time where they were a little shaky. I think Ring of Honor is in a situation where I don't know if I consider their belt a world title right now, but for the most part, I think if it's a top promotion in a country, it gets to be a world title.
World title, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what I was thinking too. Because like AEW, WWE, Impact, I would say it would be more of a world title just because they call them the big leagues.
Yeah, exactly. I look at them almost like, because it's like, well, how can it be a world title if there's more than one? Which is, I look at it more like college football and like conference championships, and you can say one means more than the other, but they're all conference championships. Is the best way I would look at it because it's basically being the top of your league, like you said, like WWE being a league and AEW being a league, and those might be bigger than Impact or Ring of Honor, but that still makes you the champion of that big league, like you were saying.
Yeah, like I would say, like if you want to do it like that, I would say like WWE is SEC, AEW is either ACC or Big Ten. That either or, and then if whatever AEW is in, that's what Impact is.
Okay, yeah, that's
what I would say, and then probably like unfortunately, like New Japan will be the American conference. You know, your beloved ECF guys.
I would almost put NXT as the American because, like, in one light, they're just as good as everybody else. Yeah. But for whatever reason, they're not looked at it that way. You know.
True. So that's good. Yeah.
Anyone that is really into wrestling and really into college football, this is the episode for you. I did not expect to make it. We might need to do that for the next episode. Just get all the major promotions and line them up with a conference. I think we should do that for Thursday's episode. If we
that'll be pretty dope.
Yeah, we'll put that in there. But yeah, again, I watch New Japan very casually. I've always entertained. I've never turned on New Japan and been like, well, that show sucked. You know, they bring it every single time. So I'm definitely going to be following this more to see how this situation goes, and with Kota Ibushi retiring the IC title, which then that really makes the US title mean more for them. Not that it had any issues before, but just very interesting. You don't see titles get retired really much anywhere other than Impact, where they kind of made belts and got rid of them rather quickly. So just, we don't talk about the guys across the pond very often, but I thought this was a story that was worth bringing up. And they actually have a show on the Roku channel now that just kind of like summarizes what's been going on, and they show like a match or two. It's just a good way to stay informed and what's going on over there. So for those that don't want to pay for New Japan World, that's definitely a way to check it out.
I think they're also on Pluto TV as well.
They are, and so is Impact. Impact has a channel. I was actually watching a little bit. Basically, their Twitch stream doubles as a channel on Pluto because when Impact's on, it'll be on, but other than that, they'll just show like classic matches and stuff.
Yeah.
So a lot of wrestling, and the family's actually only going to get bigger as the news was made today. And I know I'm usually one of the few people that like talk about this, but the NWA, we talked about it a little bit earlier. Some whispers that they were coming back. That is now official. They're coming back with a pay-per-view on March 21st. If that date sounds familiar, it's the same night as Fastlane. However, this pay-per-view will be at 4 o'clock, and then Fastlane starts at 7. So they're starting back with a pay-per-view on the 21st, and then the 22nd, 3rd, and 4th, they're filming power tapings to get that show back. The big difference is the power show is no longer going to be on YouTube. It's moving to the Fight app, which is where a lot of other wrestling is right now. The old episodes are already on there for free because there was a lot of talk. NWA took all their videos down. They privated all their videos. If you go to their YouTube channel right now, it's blank. And everybody was freaking out thinking that meant they were going out of business. What it actually meant is they were just transferring all the content over to the Fight Network. So as this reboot starts, I would just recommend to watch some of the old Power episodes, and it really offers something. I mean, you got into it towards the end of really before everything shut down when I told you about it, but it really offers something that the other companies don't. It's this great combination of throwback retro and modern wrestling.
That's good. I'm happy for them. I don't like to see companies go out of business, especially when it comes down to like a whole pandemic. Now, I feel like if there was no pandemic going on right now, they would have probably flourished a lot because the stuff that you showed me in Power and stuff, they're good. They're definitely good. Like I could see them being like a Pac-12. Continue with the references.
There you go. Yeah, we're gonna have to do this now. We're gonna figure this out for sure. But they had mentioned before the pandemic they were gonna do a small like live event schedule, and they were looking to go to a network, and like they had coals in the fire. Pun intended, with their theme being Into the Fire. But it's definitely things that, and we don't know the full roster. A lot of those people have moved on. Obviously, they have all their champions. They have Nick Aldis, Thunder Rosa, Trevor Murdoch, the Pope, D'Angelo De Niro. Aaron Stevens is one half of the tag team champion. So if you start to watch it, it's people you will know. As far as the rest of the roster now, I think we're going to learn. But, I mean, Ricky Starks came from there. Eddie Kingston was in NWA right before he went to AEW. Thunder Rosa, as I mentioned, we've been seeing her on AEW a lot. But they definitely have an eye for talent, and they're just going to find more of it. So another college football reference: the good teams don't rebuild, they reload, and that's what I expect them to do with this roster moving forward. But that's going to just about wrap it up today, guys. Like I said, we're going to try and come back on Thursday to talk about Shaq's match and then preview AEW Revolution. So you got any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, man, let's get some great wrestling, man. I'm ready. I'm happy for tomorrow. Tomorrow, NXT is looking like it's going to be good.
Yes.
AEW is going to be good. I'm excited.
Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff between both of them. There's been more rumors about, we'll talk about it more when the info comes out, but the Wednesday Night War might not be in its current form much longer, because I'm hearing more and more about them moving to Tuesday, I think is what it is, NXT. So didn't want to talk about that much now because it's not confirmed. I don't like talking about shit that we don't know for sure is happening, but 100%. That story is definitely coming out more and more. So, and honestly, if it does, I'm all for it. Not because AEW won the war. I would love to be able to watch both these shows live. And the fact that I don't is like, right now, I think I've said it before, I watch AEW live, I watch NXT on Hulu the next day. So if I can watch NXT on Tuesday and I can watch AEW on Wednesday, and both those shows are going to get much bigger ratings, and I think that's what it's all about at the end of the day. So if it happens, I'm all for it.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So that's going to do it for us, guys. Thank you all for listening. We're going to see you back on again Thursday night to Friday morning. Thank you all for listening and watching the Wrestle Report, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.